More. You should protract it.
I would like to call the Town of Rocky Hill Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting to order. It's a Wednesday, November 16th, 2022. First item is on the agenda is the public hearing.
Agenda item A, proposed zoning regulation amendment. Attorney Eric S. Parker proposing to add section 4B1 Rocky Hill zoning regulations to allow with a special permit site plan use in an RC regional commercial zoning district office to multifamily of mixed use conversion with affordable component, minimum 5% of units to be designated for affordable housing.
Do we have an applicant? All right.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name's Eric Parker from Romano Parker here in town. I am here as the applicant, but my client is here as well. JMM Properties is the owner of 1344, 1360 Silas Dean. This is Joe Maruzzi. He's the principal of that LLC. We also have John Wicko, who's his architect, who is, part of the discussion and how we came to this proposal that's before you. The parcel that I represent here is a good example to speak to why we're here and making this text amendment. And there's some issues in the current market climate with rentals that have led to this application. As you just heard, our application is to add a office to multifamily for mixed use conversion into the RC regional commercial district here in Rocky Hill. We do have in our application a minimum of 5% of units to be designated for affordable housing. The parcel that my client owns is the office building behind the Wendy's on the Silas Dean. And in looking at the other properties in the RC commercial district, you're talking about things like the Shell gas station, the Dakota Steakhouse complex, the Kohl's Plaza, the Town Fair Tire Plaza, the Walmart, the Holiday Inn Express. He owns really the only large office building in that district. And there are some smaller office spaces, but this is the one large building. And what we've seen and what he's seen, he owns other office buildings and other commercial spaces, is a massive shift in the rental climate, particularly as it comes to commercial properties. He's seeking to make this conversion because the market has really changed certainly over the past 2 years with COVID, but really even longer than that. This regional commercial district that might have someone who had a main office in Hartford but wanted a satellite office in a town like Rocky Hill, that market has largely evaporated. And we saw in the latest census data, the Hartford area apartment rental rate, the vacancy rate was 2.9%, among the best in the country. Apartments are a hot commodity, particularly newer, nicer apartments. They're going like that. Offices, it's a very different story. The latest we see from Moody's is a 25% vacancy rate in Hartford County and in central Connecticut. Pre-COVID, it was 13%. And that was already not a wonderful number in the commercial world. But now we're up 25%, depending on who you talk to, 22, 25, 27, big numbers. Gallup has put out some information saying a third of office space nationwide could be abandoned, and that would mean towns like Rocky Hill could lose valuable tax base. My client has 2 whole floors that very soon will be vacant in that building. He talked to commercial brokers, and they basically chuckled and said, oh, sure, 2 whole floors off the Silas Dean in Rocky Hill. Yeah, let me get you a tenant in there right away. It's just a market that's evaporated. And other than just happening to hit on the perfect renter, the perfect tenant, it could be a market that won't come back for some time. So he's proposing to make good use of that building and to tap into the market that is hot, the apartment rental market. This proposal would allow for that building to be converted. Mr. Wicko, the architect, has plans. We're ready to apply for that building. I know your consideration today is just as to a zone change, but I want you to have the background of why this makes sense. We think this is something that's going to be coming. We've already seen this talked about nationwide. Just in 2021, there were 7,500 units across the country that we were able to track down that were office space to apartment conversions. And we think in a town like Rocky Hill, we're not going to be the last ones here before you. The interesting thing is we think we're just about the only ones in the RC zone this applies to. So as we're doing something new, we think this is a really great way for Rocky Hill to dip their toe into this new market instead of seeing 50 potential buildings in a different zone in town that might be able to suddenly be flooding in applications and flooding the town with apartments. We're looking at a pretty limited area, but the perfect building in a great location. We've already mocked it up, how it could transform and look forward to presenting that at the appropriate time. But we're talking about special permit, site plan, lots of oversight, and the affordable component. Just one last thing, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. One difference in an office space to apartment conversion is the cost. If you take a vacant lot and you build an apartment building, there's a fixed cost, obviously, to that then the developer is going to expect to be paid back through rents. The best numbers that I could find, it was Moody's again, who said the 7,500 new units, in analyzing those over the last year, the per square foot cost of this type of conversion is between $100 and $200 per square more expensive. To take existing infrastructure with higher than needed ceilings for an apartment, with exterior windows but wide interior places where you might have had cubicles, with large parking decks. That's one of the challenges we have on that building in deciding it. So the determination of how we propose this and the affordable component, that spoke to it, and the extra cost that will come. But we think this is a home run for the town of Rocky Hill and something that we think will probably come before you with maybe some other developer and some other property and some other zone in the future, because this seems to be the future of this type of property. But we think this is a great entry into that for this town, and a proposal that we frankly think makes sense. Like I said, my client is here if you have questions of the principal, but I'd be happy to answer any questions about the application.
Open up, anyone else would like to address? Or-
Do you have any comments you'd like to make? Come up here if you're going to.
Hi, Joe Maruzzi. I'm the owner of the property, and I thank you for taking the time to listen to us. As Eric said, 25% or 27% vacancy factor now. You have to understand something. We're still in COVID, or the end of COVID, hopefully. There are many, many current leases, office leases, that are still a 3, a 5, a 7, a 10-year term. Okay, so that 25 to 27% that maybe exists right now will get worse as every year passes by. And I could assure you that the vacancy and the people looking for office space right now, especially larger office space, is few and far between. So what I'm summing up is the 25, 27% right now may translate into 30 to 40% in the near future. And now the corporations realize that they could save a lot of money with people being home, and supposedly productivity is still relatively good. They may never let them come back, or may never let all of them come back. I really think that they will never all come back again. Even when COVID is totally clean and this is all said and done, I think corporations realize now that they're going to save a lot of money. A lot of people are happy, but quite frankly, I don't think it's the smartest thing to do, because people don't mingle and learn. But they don't care. It's all about the dollar, and corporations that's the way they are. And I think it's going to get worse. And given the fact that Rocky Hill has a lot of office space, and in some areas, not like mine, but at exit 23, you have that big office park. You can't convert that. Okay, that is not convertible. You get a conglomerate of office space, office buildings in an area like that, you can't just take a piece, a building here and there, and change it over to an apartment building. It doesn't make any sense, because there's so many offices around it. So they're going to be faced with this problem. At least me taking away some office space is minimal, but it's a start. Maybe there'll be a select few of other buildings in the town that may be a good candidate for it. But if you're talking big office parks and changing them, that's going to be more difficult for them. So me taking away some of this will eventually help them. and it helps the building. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anyone in the public who would like to address, so we'll go to the commissioners. Commissioner Zurelli?
Question on 4B1. Are we looking to add a number 7, or we're just looking to modify number 6 to add it?
Yeah.
So the letter that I sent to Ms. Ritchie, I actually took the chart and added another line to the acceptable use chart, a 7. That's just how I conceptually saw it, was it would be a totally separate, distinct line that would say, this is something else you can do with special permit site plan approval.
How would it differ from 6? Maybe just question the staff.
Okay, it states office to multifamily or mixed-use conversion with affordable component, minimum 5% of the units to be designated for affordable housing.
So this proposal is to add a number 7 and just designate it for that zone, rather than
Correct.
just change number 6 and
Just
just
the-
add,
That's
literally
what-
shade in the RC.
That's what the proposal is. That's not my proposal, that's.
No, but I'm asking
Yes.
for cleanliness of our regulations. Does it fit better with just putting it in 6 and saying, yes, you can do multifamily in the RC zone?
Rather than carving out,
Rather than keep on adding to it, doesn't it just make more sense to just literally put it in the RC zone, number 6? It's the same thing.
Residential units in one or more, well, that way you can put in more than one building. So, that,
There should be questions only for the.
either way,
Well, this is,
I mean, this is,
either.
I just want clarification whether we're
Either
just
way,
adding
I
a
mean, you
7
could
or if we're
do-
just doing 6.
Because this is a conversion of an existing building. I think in
But
talking.
that would come in a site plan.
Yeah, I think
We're
in
just allowing the
talking.
use.
Yeah, and I think in talking with Attorney Parker when he came into the office, because we've had requests along Sodestine Highway for commercial, same thing, but in a commercial use, but we're talking a singular building.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking one or more. We're talking, we don't want them, it wasn't more than one building.
We also propose a mixed use because we do have some existing tenants who have leases. So we would be, some of the building would convert and some of it would
Yeah,
not.
no, but number
this
6
is-
is a mixed use.
Yeah.
It's a mixed use and residential. But it's only
Residential
allowed in the
and
town
one or
center. Why don't we
more.
just allow it in the RC and just clarify?
One or more residential units in mixed-use buildings, but this is, it can convert, or it could be office, or it could be a conversion, so.
I was just
I mean,
curious.
either way,
We proposed it as a 7, but
because they want.
the outcome is more,
Oh, I throw it out to my fellow commissioners. Do we care, or do we want to?
Just a point of order, I think this should be discussed in the body of the meeting.
Well,
not-
I was just-
Not at a public hearing.
Well,
Well, it's a
he
question.
proposed it one way. I'm asking staff the other way. That's why I'm
Yeah.
asking that.
I just don't want to get us
That's
in
fine.
trouble.
That's fair. I have no other questions.
Commissioner Hussey?
Attorney Parker, how many other properties would you say in that, in the regional district, if this was amended, could potentially be impacted? Do you know, did you look at that in terms of how many others in
So-
that sector?
what my review of the zone is that there's none that truly are an office building, right? Part of why we proposed it as a 7 as opposed to adding it into 6, is a space like the Walmart, a shopping center type space going to fall under that 7? Probably not the way we proposed it, maybe if it was handled a different way. So looking at the RC zone, it's my belief that there's none, certainly none in any way close to the size of this particular property. There are some within some of those shopping centers where there's an office, is a dentist's office or something like that. Could you try to do something like that? I mean, obviously, that would be subject to site plan and special permit. There's no buildings like his in that zone. That's why my point would be, if this is a wave that's coming, this is a great way to dip the toe in. And it's not going to, I don't believe, lead to widespread change. it's going to allow this, building to be a test case while applying to the whole zone.
Yeah. No further questions.
All right.
You mentioned it's behind Wendy's. Where exactly is Wendy's? I'm looking at my,
Just north of I-91, right at the Weathersfield line.
okay.
If you go north of 91 on your right, it's a Shell gas station, and then there's the Wendy's, and this is the office building that's down in the back.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, would there be any objection to changing your 5% to 10%?
No.
Since we're in the hole for affordable housing as it is.
We anticipated that might be something that would be proposed. As I said, the costs are higher because of the type of conversion. I think it would be easier to swallow if it were, just a lot where you're trying to build apartments. But that said, in talking to my client, I think that's something we can make the numbers work on at 10%.
Okay. And you say that this is the only building in the RC zone that currently,
It's the only building I could identify in the RC zone that would fit the way I proposed it.
okay, because RC is pretty small anyway, when you look at it.
And a lot of it is shopping centers. So, the idea that it's office space to mixed use kind of limits who would qualify. And like I said, there's dentist offices and things like that in some of the storefronts, but a true office building, this appears to be the one.
Okay, that's it for me.
Commissioner Robbins?
So we're only proposing conversion, mixed-use conversion, right?
That's what I've proposed.
No language in regards to new construction, just conversions.
My proposal is a conversion.
Okay. No, that's my concern. Okay.
Commissioner Brescia?
You had mentioned you'd be providing lots of oversight. What do you mean by that? You were talking about the plan, and you said oversight, lots of oversight.
Well, I think the town, because I think maybe what you're referring to is that it is special permit site plan approval. So this isn't just asking to, willy-nilly by right, you can start turning commercial spaces into residential spaces.
Yeah.
We're not asking for that step. We understand that we're going to have to come in and show how this conversion works. It's what we've seen and what Mr. Wicko has seen in the beginning of the design. It's kind of a weird thing. I mean, it's a space that was designed for one purpose and it's being repurposed for something else, but it seems like it's workable and it's worked in other places across the country great.
Yeah. Any interference with current leaseholders, do you anticipate?
We don't anticipate any interference with current leaseholders. There was one substantial leaseholder who is leaving at the end of the year, which is what brought about this. There is at least one commercial tenant who we anticipate staying. We plan to do the conversion without touching that space.
Do you know about how many units you're looking at?
For
There's no application, there's
Yeah,
no
we haven't-
No
application for
applications, it's
development
just
at
this,
this
okay,
time. Yes.
okay, yeah. Okay,
I-
that's it.
I just have one more question. Now that I found it on the map, this is the last property in Rocky Hill, it looks like.
Yeah.
The next property north is in Weathersfield.
Yeah, there's one kind of triangular that could be considered one more property in Rocky Hill, I guess. But yeah, pretty much it's the end of the line.
So we would have to advise Weathersfield
That's good.
about
And
Okay.
we also did the Regional Planning Agency as well.
Yeah.
And there's correspondence in your packet.
I'm all set.
The do you want me to just read this for the record? The correspondence?
Yeah,
from-
let me just
Okay.
finish. And I know this is not an application, but is that, what do you envision, like ground floor, commercial, and top floors residential? Is that a mix like
Nope.
that?
Would you like to hear from the architect, even though we don't have an application in yet? He can give you
There's
some
no
conceptual.
application.
Yeah, there is,
We should not
I-
get into that.
okay.
Maybe I'll just tell you conceptually things that we've talked about.
Yeah.
There's 2 parking levels and then 3 levels of office space right now. One of the parking levels we would plan to convert. Then the first 2 levels of office space we would plan to convert, and we would leave office space on the top floor. So it would be 1 level of
that'll
covered
be the
garage,
parking garage, yeah.
then apartments, offices. is what we're talking about as a preliminary plan. You know, if we were to apply, it might be like 55 to 60 units.
Okay. All right. Anyone else has any questions?
Motion to close public hearing.
Oh,
Kim wanted to read.
Kim wanted to read.
Sorry.
Sorry, I have to read the record. I understand. Letter received from Capital Region Council of Governments dated October 14th concerning application Z 2022-137, proposed zoning regulation to allow office to affordable housing transitional development plan under special permit. Receipt is acknowledged. The above-mentioned referral notice of this proposal was transmitted to Policy and Planning Division of Capital Region Council of Governments under the provisions of Section 8-3, subsection B, Connecticut General Statutes as amended. Comment, the staff of the Regional Planning Commission of the Capital Region Council of Governments has reviewed the zoning referral and finds no apparent conflict with regional plans and policies or concerns of neighboring towns. Staff commends the expansion of diversity in housing opportunities, furthering CROG's policy of increasing the range of choice in housing for people of all incomes and ages. Public hearing is scheduled. They got the wrong date. In accordance with our procedures, this letter shall constitute final CROG action on this referral. So,
Thank you. And just for the voting purposes, all the 4 regular plus Commissioner Hussey would be seated.
okay.
Motion to close public hearing.
Second that.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you all.
Point of order to the commission here. Should we move up agenda item 5A and then change the agenda around?
Then we'd have to open the meeting.
Yeah, no, why don't we just,
I have a feeling this next one is going to go
I
fairly.
just wanted to
Yeah, I
throw it
know.
out.
This could be very quick.
Okay.
I'd like to do that too, but.
Denied.
item 1B.
Proposed zoning regulation amendment, Town of Rocky Hill proposing several modifications to Section 5B Glastonbury Avenue Overlay District to allow for new construction, and Section 8.5.c additional village district considerations.
Kim?
This is concerning the Glastonbury Avenue Overlay District. You might recall there had been a pre-application in the past before you for a property in that zone. It was to actually convert an existing older residential structure to a mixed-use structure and then add 2 new mixed-use structures to the property. When assessing the structural integrity of that former residential structure, it was found out that the foundation was inadequate to structurally support what they wanted to do. So we looked at possibly amending the regulations and looking at the other structures in that area. Being a historic district, obviously, some of the structures are quite old, and there may be similar problems with some of the structures down there. We do want to keep the integrity of the district as much as we can. So we're looking to include new construction in that zone. Right now, it's basically conversion of existing structures to possibly a mixed-use or non-residential structure. We're looking to do new structures, new construction. And we're looking at the architecture, distinctive architecture. We're looking at consideration be given to density, setbacks, open space, height, orientation of buildings, and parking being consistent with the community. And we're talking about changing the permitted uses within the Glastonbury overlay district to allow not only the conversion of existing buildings, but new construction for lived work buildings, retail, office use, studio, gallery use, or restaurant, similar eating establishments. You can see on the second page of the agenda, in looking at Section 8C5 about additional village district considerations, we're talking about design considerations. It is a village district zone, so by statute, it does go to the village district consultant. We're talking about special attention being paid to distinctive attributes, looking at the resources involved in the village district that is presently existing, and the scenic attributes of the district as well. So we have the complete language of the text as it exists, and the proposed language is highlighted in blue, and it's basically new construction, talking about distinct attributes of the zone.
All right. Commissioner Zurelli?
No questions.
Commissioner Hussey?
No questions.
Commissioner Lucko?
No, the only question I have is, what is the setback requirement right now for that district?
Hang on.
My only question is, I know that overall, you know, we're looking to, it'd be nice to have sidewalks eventually, maybe. I just want to make sure what we're doing doesn't conflict with.
Yeah, well, that is
Putting sidewalks
that's
in.
actually, that zone primarily is a residential zone. So, but the Glastonbury overlay zone, basically you have the uses overlaying that are
Oh,
in
okay.
town.
It's an overlay zone.
So
Okay.
it's primarily a residential,
Just the residential zone, yeah. Okay.
but we are allowing for mixed uses under the overlay.
So if somebody puts in a new building, they'll have to put in sidewalks?
Well,
They'll have
that's
to
up to
come.
us.
They'll have to come
Or
here.
potentially,
When the time comes, yeah.
when the time comes?
I mean,
Okay.
we've discussed, because Glastonbury overlay zone, it is a state road. The
Right.
right-of-way is extremely narrow.
Yeah,
Many of the properties are up to the setback or up to the property line. Many of the structures are up to the property line, and they are legal non-conforming. They've been there a lot longer than we've been here. So there may have to be easements. You may have to do easements on some of these properties, or there may have to be crosswalks to get you to the other side of the street. So you can cross over,
Yeah.
depending on where the.
it'll be challenging, yeah.
Yeah, yes. We've already started looking at that in the Plan Implementation Committee. We've already looked at walkability down to the river.
Okay.
We can talk about that later if you'd like.
Yeah, that's the only question I have. yeah.
Commissioner Morales?
You mentioned a specific property. What was the address of that? And what? or-
We had a pre-app, it is
reference?
on the public record. We did have a pre-app for property located at 41, that's 41 Glastonbury Avenue, on the corner of Belden
Okay,
and Glastonbury.
yeah, I know there was one, but I,
And there was it's a brown house. It
In
had
your
been a
moment.
white house. They painted it brown.
It was a Zoom meeting.
And that was the one, yeah, that was the house, they did assess it as far as the structural integrity, and they did find issues with the foundation.
Good.
that's it for me.
Right, Commissioner Robbins?
The concern I have, though, is once we open it up for construction, it just seems like it's going to be extremely hard to preserve the character of the district, even with the village consultant weighing in on the issue, because we know from experience this past year that a lot of what the village consultant had said in previous developments, mixed-use developments, and that, well, next door there, it did not make its way into the final decision that was approved. So concern is that what's to keep somebody from just knocking down buildings and coming back at us with a mixed-use development, either where there's existing structures in the Glastonbury overlay district, and/or don't we have a large vacant parcel down at the bottom? It's like that parking lot area.
That parking lot is privately owned, and that is associated with the Riverfront Future Partners project, the former foundry, that is owned by them.
Yeah.
That is not, that's owned by them. And that was approved as part of that project for parking.
Yeah,
So
that's
that is
all.
approved as a parking lot.
But it's in the is it in the Glastonbury overlay district?
Correct, but it's
And
already,
and that development hasn't gone anywhere, right?
as of this point, no.
So if they came back with a new proposal to
then we start from scratch.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is,
Have a
do you
permit
end up
already.
with a multifamily mixed-use housing development in the Glastonbury Overlay District with a couple restaurant? Do we end up in a situation
Well, you
where-
already have
We have that.
the Foundry
That's what the
project,
Foundry
which is not the topic of
Yeah, the
conversation
Foundry's-
this evening,
Yeah,
but
Foundry's in
that,
the waterfront district, and that's over there. What I'm saying, I'm just trying to think of all the properties in that area. I'm
you can
thinking
take
out.
an existing home. This is where this came from.
Yeah.
Take an existing structure, and this really does stem from number 41, Glastonbury. There was an issue where because of the age of the structures down there, it didn't make sense from a structural perspective to reutilize that structure. So rather than reutilize the existing structure, take it down, build something of similar appearance, but new, of similar appearance, and put that up on that property.
Yeah. So we have a situation which makes sense at face value for that one parcel, but what I'm trying to figure out is what is the impact to the entire, what are the potential things that could backfire on us? For instance, what's to keep somebody come in and buy up 4 houses in a row and then, come in with a proposal that, because we always keep ending up with the change in the state law with, character being off the table, and then we've got scenic attributes in the vicinity. What's vicinity mean?
And you also have, it's a National Historic District, so it does have to go to the State Historic Preservation Office as well.
So do we have those specific requirements for that district about what can and can't happen there?
No, we do not. It's a national district, not a local district.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's my concern. It's just that, are we opening not the parcel that we're trying to address, but are we opening the door to something that further down the road was going to be difficult for the commission to meet the vision of what we're trying to accomplish here? Because it certainly could happen. And if so, is there anything we can do just to be more solid on how we're going to maintain these principles within it? Because it is a rare stretch of property that if we lose that character, our
Right.
vision's out the door. And it only takes one development to do that.
Yeah, so part of the character is that you have single lots, and you have one structure on a single lot. And that's the kind of character we want to preserve, rather than somebody coming in and taking 4 lots, combining them into something that looks completely different than what we currently have. I think that's what.
Can we
Wouldn't that be in the
stop
site
that
plan,
from
though?
happening? I mean,
Again, they'll have to, for combining the lots, they'll have to come here, right? I mean, there's a
Then you've
process.
got
Well,
the,
to combine and
Right.
build. I mean, to
Right.
combine lots, no. They wouldn't have to necessarily come before you, but
to build it.
to
to build, they would
That's
still come
totally
before
different.
us,
That's a
but
totally
once we
different
open that door to mixed use,
So to address
It
that.
always was visioned a mixed use in the 2001 POCD and in the 2015 POCD. It was envisioned as mixed use down to the river. That was the vision in the Plan of Conservation and Development from way back when. That's why the Glastonbury Overlay Zone was created in the 2015 POCD.
So to address that, is there limitation on the footprint? Like say this building, they're going to demo, are they going to expand the footprint?
or the number of units, or
Like add another lot?
Not just footprint, so then you can add numbers and all that, but
Well, then you've got the other zoning regulations that they have to comply with.
Well, I mean, you have setbacks and maximum building coverage and things like that. But with respect to that specific property that you're talking about, they were looking at taking down one, acquiring additional property and putting up 2 more. So instead of having an appearance of 1 home, it would be appearance of 3.
But this is all discussion when we get a site plan application,
Correct.
not a zoning
This is a
change,
text change.
public hearing, just to put it into.
yeah, no, I'm just,
Yeah.
with everything that's been going on, the language that rings loud and clear for me is that unless explicitly stated in our zoning regulations, there's certain things we can and cannot
Correct.
do. And I just want to make sure we're not opening the door for something where, I mean, granted, we're all here, we can make that decision when it comes, but in the future, it's going to be a different group of people.
It is?
Well, eventually. Yeah, time will. yeah.
Probably not for a while.
He's not going anywhere.
What's going on here? Our pension plan is going to.
Anyways,
I think we should worry about that when the time comes.
Yeah.
You got all sorts of underlying regulations. You've got the subdivision regulations. So if they want to combine property.
Yeah, that's
doesn't
true.
the
Yeah, there's
subdivision
yeah.
control
That's
that too?
dividing.
Yeah.
That's part of the.
But I mean, they're talking
A lot
about
of things.
removal or disruption of historic,
discussion.
traditional, significant structures or
Part of the-
architectural elements shall be avoided or
Part of the
minimized.
discussion when we get to.
That's up to the
Yeah.
commission to
That's
determine
discretionary. Yeah.
whether or not they're going to be doing
The only-
certain things.
The only other question I have is just, how do we, scenic attributes in the vicinity, what's the definition of vicinity? Should we say scenic attributes in the overlay district? What do we mean by vicinity? Again,
Visual, maybe?
but I mean, should we have some
Do we have?
definition to vicinity?
Well,
Adjacent
wouldn't that-
properties,
Wouldn't that mean the Glastonbury overlay district? That's the vicinity.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
This applies to the Glastonbury overlay district. So
So we.
And then
so-
if you look in that same sentence, that same number 4, you're talking about the exterior structures or sites shall be
Consistent
consistent with. So obviously, in order to, I'm not the Connecticut Historical Commission.
Yeah, that's probably that's the
So-
stricter one anyway, so.
Yeah.
All right,
So
that's
there's
it.
checks and balances.
Mr. Brescia?
I'm all set.
All right, thank you. I just have one question on the change on the first paragraph at the end. It says within the community. So consideration shall be given, blah, 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 within the community. Should that be within the district rather than whole community? I don't know. I mean, because community has a lot of different variety of things.
I would say that's
square
correct.
miles.
Within the district.
Huh?
Within the district.
Within the district, right? Okay, so we can change that. Otherwise, no other questions? Any other questions, comments?
Motion to close public hearing.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, opposed, motion passes. Item 1C,
We have to open it and table it? Or,
we just take a vote, like,
Yeah, you have to,
at the
well,
request.
Take a
I
motion
would,
to table.
I would open it just to, I'll read this email and then we can,
site plan application, Vessel RE Holdings LLC proposing 31-bedroom apartments with 9 apartments being designated as affordable in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes, Section 8-30G, along with associated site improvements for property located at 2369 Main Street, Rock Hill, Connecticut, in a town center zoning district ID 10-080. Continuation.
I received an email dated November 8th from attorney Andrea Gomes. It states, "Good afternoon, Kim. I'm writing to request that the Planning and Zoning Commission continue the public hearing on our application to its December 21st, 2022 regular meeting. As you know, we received a peer review report from SLR on Friday of last week, and we need more time to appropriately respond to the comments therein. Note that we've also requested a continuance for a public hearing on our wetlands permit application to December 14th. When you have a moment, please confirm receipt of this email. Given our request, we do not plan to attend the November 16th meeting."
Can I have a motion to continue?
To table?
Yeah, to
Continue.
table.
No,
Mo-
No,
not table.
continue.
Right, this is
It's
a,
a continuation
Okay. Motion to continue the public hearing.
to,
December,
And we should discuss.
yeah, so,
The wetlands hearing on this is December 14th. The wetlands meeting may have another application that we will have on our December agenda also. Our meeting is set up for scheduled December 14th. It's impossible to have two meetings at the same time, given the applicants would be on the same meeting. So we would either have to have a later meeting or to schedule December 21st as our regular meeting, being a special meeting. We did set the public hearing for the affordable housing plan for December 21st. So my suggestion is we have a special meeting on December 21st.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, there's no choice. I mean, that's the,
I mean,
only
the
oth-
consultant is available on December 21st.
Yep.
He said that at our meeting when we reviewed the draft plan.
The other option would be to do it at the January meeting.
The public hearing on the affordable housing plan must be completed by the end of the calendar year.
Right,
That
but
I
I'm
can tell
saying
you.
this one can be done on.
but they'll have to
January
give
meeting.
that extension, right?
They'd have to modify
They'll
their
have to
extension
modify.
request.
I would think since we're giving them a month delay that they've asked for, they would probably ask for, approve a delay.
Does it make sense to keep it on that meeting and talk affordable when we have our consultant here? And we can pull knowledge from him while he's here?
Right, I'm talking about this RE,
No, but by
Yeah,
having
but
both
having-
applications on the same night, does it make sense to pull knowledge from our consultant for that application?
wow,
He's here, we're talking about it.
I was told it was being.
We will have our town attorney present at that meeting.
Yeah. I was told it would be inappropriate to do both at the same meeting.
Yeah, we're about that, Dallin.
She said it.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever, I'm just suggesting things.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
we will need their permission. We can't. I
Yeah, we
think
can't just
they-
do
They
that.
ask
I mean-
until, right, they ask,
Yeah.
I mean, the only other consideration is it's extremely close to the holiday.
Yeah.
And it's a public hearing, and the public is very interested in the project.
yep.
Correct. You talk about 3 days before Christmas Eve. So that's why I think possibly doing it at the January meeting would be better.
Well, they're not here to address that, so they've asked for a continuance to the 21st. I can certainly float that, and then on the 21st, we'll either have a hearing or it'll be continued to January.
So, all right, yep, so motion.
Motion to continue the public hearing to December 21st, 2022.
I'll
Yeah,
second that. Just-
Thank you. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 2, calling,
Public comment?
yeah, calling the public comment period. Anyone who in the public would like to address to the commission on the items not on the agenda? Seeing no public, moving on to consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 5A.
Proposed zoning regulation amendment, Attorney Eric S. Parker proposing to add to Section 4B1 Rock Hill zoning regulations to allow with a special permit site plan in an RC Regional Zoning District office to multifamily of mixed-use conversion with affordable component, minimum 5% of units to be designated for affordable housing.
Can I have a
Motion to approve Agenda Item A with the following condition, that minimum would be 10% units rather than 5 for affordable housing.
can I have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
All right, discussion?
I just want, I don't know if we can, how we could do this, but I want to make sure that this applies only to conversions, not to new construction.
We'll keep it
also.
as number 7 because there was a good case for it.
Yeah. Okay, that's my only comment.
All right, all in favor of the motion?
But
Aye.
you want to do it? Oh, aye.
All right, opposed?
Congratulations.
Passes?
You all set? Didn't delay too much longer.
Item 5B is already,
Proposed zoning regulation amendment, Town of Rock Hill proposing several modifications to Section 5B of the Glastonbury Avenue Overlay District to allow for new construction in Section 8.5C, additional village district considerations.
I'll second that.
Motion to approve the changes to the overlay district with the
I guess he wasn't finished.
wording under village district declared, with the condition that the wording under village district declared community be changed to district.
district.
and all other changes.
Second that.
All in favor of the motion?
I did have a question, now I lost it, or something, a comment. Oh,
Way to go, Dimple.
no, okay, I'm okay.
All right, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
My question comes too late.
C's already,
Review and adopt 2023 meeting schedule. D.
We had this at the last meeting. There was a change in the July schedule. The July, there was a religious holiday of some cultural significance for populations in the town of Rocky Hill. So the meeting was scheduled at a different day. So I think it's the fourth Wednesday of the month versus the third Wednesday in July.
all right. Any other comments on the schedule?
Motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Agenda item E, reviewed discussion of draft zoning amendment to add section 4C28 and section 4B4 for administrative action on outdoor dining and beverage services as an accessory use for established food establishments under Connecticut Public Act 22-1 and 22-118.
There was a memorandum that I believe, had gone out and should have been in your packet concerning outdoor dining. When the governor issued executive orders during COVID, we as zoning enforcement staff were allowed to approve outdoor dining establishments associated with a restaurant, an existing restaurant, and we had to get health district approval and fire marshal approval for them. This public act is allowing for the continuation of those establishments. They would have to come and under a zoning permit process or a site plan process. We're proposing a zoning permit process. That's one of the things this commission will have to decide if they want to do it per site plan or per zoning permit. When we did this, there was one issue that we had with Wooden Tap putting a tent up over a handicap parking space, so we had to make them take the tent down and reposition the tent because of that. But outside of that, people were fairly compliant. They are allowed to modify their parking area. They're allowed to put in tents and tables and travelways as well. They can even use town roads with town permission. We don't advocate for that. We don't have that. We don't have that type of setup in the town of Rocky Hill where we can actually close down a street. But there's a regulation here for or suggestions for you to look at as far as Section 4C28 outdoor dining and beverage service as an accessory use to a licensed restaurant. We'll want it with a zoning permit for the ZEO and to put the conditions of approval and everything on the land records, so there's a record of it being approved. We would need a letter of permission from the owner with a sketch plan like we have now, separating vehicular traffic from dining areas. We need waste receptacles. We would get support and sign off by the health district and the fire marshal to make sure we have adequate access for emergency vehicles and proper waste receptacles, et cetera. That's on here as well. You can use other properties if you have permission from the abutting owner. You can do that. We haven't had any of those requests. Everybody seems to want their own space, so we haven't had that request. You cannot impede vehicular or pedestrian travelways or accessibility routes, whether it be a handicap accessible ramp or driveway. They have to comply with the Liquor Control Act, meaning they would need to get a patio liquor permit if they're serving beverages outside, and that's something that they can do as part of this public act. Hours of operation to be till 9 PM unless requested and approved, and then extended hours only till 11 PM on weekends. So, obviously, if they have any lighting circumstances, if they require lighting, if they're extended hours and they're, dining in the evening, they would have to get the requisite building permits, but that's something that's outside of the scope of the zoning regs. They would have to go to the building official for that. So, just something for you to look at. We do have to do an outdoor dining regulation with an administrative process by the Public Act, and we must have it enacted on or before May 1st of 2023. So,
Okay.
Does the Public Act say fast food also? Or can this be limited to just restaurants?
it's any,
And similarly, eating establishments?
it's any food use,
Any
any
food
approved food use. So,
And how do we
even those that have been approved in the past under executive orders per the governor, those would have to come back under this process before May 1 to get approved.
How do we distinguish between fast food and restaurant? How do we distinguish between the two? Is it a
We
drive-through?
distinguish
Is
under
it-
definition in our regulations.
Okay.
But if you want, we can maybe tweak the language as far as what would be allowed.
Yeah, I throw it out to the commission. I mean, I don't know, do we want to open this up to fast food, or is the spirit of the language just for restaurants?
I mean, it's good to define and then, depending on the situation, because not every business and everything is same, right? I mean, it's different, so,
Some areas don't have the land to
Right.
do this.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna,
McDonald's, for
It's a
example,
case by case.
McDonald's, they have two drive-through lanes now, merging into one. They don't really have the outdoor area to do this without impeding one of those drive-through lanes. I don't see them doing that because that's most of their business now. They took
But
out
they
most of
could.
their seating.
But they could.
They could if they asked, and it got approved.
is there a way we can limit it to, I don't know how to word this, established restaurants, not, or eliminate or prevent this for restaurants that have drive-throughs?
I don't know that we can, but we have time to check that out. We have time to look
Yeah, I
into
mean,
that.
we've got
Yeah.
several months, but that's
Yeah.
something to think about. Because when you got people going through drive-throughs and you got people,
Yeah.
wait.
It has to be safe, obviously.
So like an ice cream shop, like Scoops and Sprinkles.
They have outdoor picnic
They've always had
Yeah.
tables,
Yeah.
pre-COVID.
But is that considered fast food, or is that considered a
That's
restaurant?
outdoor dining.
Yeah,
That's,
it's not fast
Right.
food.
yeah.
That's, to
That's-
Alan's point, I'm trying
Yeah.
to create a distinction between the two,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, fast
You
food
throw
gives me
picnic
the-
tables out there.
I don't consider
Right.
an ice
Yeah.
cream shop a restaurant.
Can be dangerous.
Though.
which, that's why I'm.
Okay, so it has to meet the definition of a restaurant.
I mean, again, like looking at, and I'm assuming this language is from Public Act. It says,
Some of it.
Public Act 22-1, 22-11A requires municipality to allow outdoor dining accessory use to a food use. It doesn't say
What kind?
what kind, it just says food. So if somebody is
It has to
selling
be an
food,
established place. It has to be an established.
Yeah.
But if they come before us, we can say it has to be a gated area, it has to have,
But it has to be,
Ambulatory
it has to be,
access, all the other
it
stuff
can't
that
be a
goes with it.
special permit process, has to be administrative process. So that's either a zoning permit, and it meets the regs, or it has to be a site plan process through the commission, and then the commission would have to do it, regulate it, but you have to have standards, and then it either meets them or it doesn't.
But 90-something percent of this is going to be determined by you and your office, not
Well, it's all by
the
the-
commission.
By the Public Act, actually.
Yeah, but, I mean, it's
And
not
then
something
we have
in each
health
case is going to
districts.
come before the commission.
Well, if you want it to be a site
want.
plan process, we're not proposing it as a site plan
if you want,
process.
we can,
Because we have a good portion of those restaurants that have already done this under executive orders. Some of them are still doing it, some are not. If they want, no matter what, they still have to come back to us and get those approved.
Okay, well, that's-
Yeah, so, I mean, current process is the staff does it, so.
Right, that's the
Yeah.
way I.
Yeah,
I mean, as part of the process we have now, if the area they set up takes up so many parking spots, that knocks their previously approved proposal, by the commission, previously approved proposal, now all of a sudden it's not compliant. Is that something you guys address as far as making sure they maintain the adequate number of parking spaces as was originally required?
Plus, if they don't have enough parking, their business is hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of, it's their own checks and balances, too.
And then the other question I have is, if this is going to become a possible more permanent situation, do we have any
Well, this could be, these outdoor dining areas, I mean, would be, once May 1 comes around, they can be there all the time.
Yeah. So the question was, do we have, as part of the process we have, or the part of the process we're looking forward to, going to have like engineering standards for safety reasons? And, if you're going to have a canopy that it's got, hold down weights of a certain amount, so up to winds of speed of such and such, so
That's,
somebody
once
doesn't get
again,
hurt?
that's fire marshal.
That's fire marshal?
Building,
building
Yeah,
inspector.
they-
building-
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I just wondered if
Yeah.
we had the process, yeah. All
What
right.
about outdoor music and stuff like that?
all that stuff would have
Who-
to be,
you
looked-
guys
all
do
that,
that?
all that stuff would have to be looked at, yeah.
Right.
And
We
what about
haven't
permanent?
Administratively
permanent
or
canopies?
through, I mean, things like.
It's administrative.
Things like noise, things like light.
But is it permanent?
You mentioned lighting.
Yep. Well, we had this discussion on lighting when, for example, when the first one that came in was Wooden Tap. Wooden Tap isn't around a residential area.
Right.
It's not near resident, so that makes sense, but it didn't, he couldn't interfere with traffic also.
Right.
Then if you had something around a residential area, that would make sense.
You guys wouldn't want to be on the zoning. board.
As far as looking at it
Right.
in a
Okay.
different way. Plus,
I'm good.
lighting code is full cutoff per building code. So there's, when we have a plan in, we review it with the building official, the fire marshal, and we're,
Yeah, so it's nothing really discretionary about lighting. It either meets the building standard for
yeah.
cutoff.
I mean,
or
sometimes there's a
doesn't.
light that's shining, and it may be shining instead of at this angle, it's kind of, shining out. So we would basically tell them to either put a shield on it.
Yeah.
Or angle the fixture down,
Okay.
So there's ways to deal with that.
All right, so we'll have time to digest this, because we haven't.
Yes, I would like you to
So why don't we look at it and,
take it
Bring
back. And
suggestions.
we'll refine this too.
Yep.
We'll bring back, I just want you to know that we have some time on this, but I'd like to get it done sooner than later so we can get people into the process so they can get approved if they want to. Some restaurants chose not to continue with that. For example, on Mitchell's down on Celestine, they didn't do that. They closed down the outdoor portion.
Parking.
Right. It's a
All
checks
right.
and balance.
moving on to item F.
Discussion and direction on adult use cannabis establishment. 1, prohibition. 2, place reasonable restrictions on hours and signage. 3, restrict the proximity to religious institutions, schools, charitable institutions, hospitals, veterans' homes, or certain military establishments.
So you have a map that's in your packet that, I've asked the mayor in a conversation I've had with her, if there's been any direction from the town council, because this really is a community decision. I've gotten no feedback, as far as that goes. And it is the decision that this commission needs to make. The issue of adult use cannabis it's basically a retail use. It's a secured retail use. So without separation requirements, and that we're allowed to do that. But without that, they can go into retail establishments. We have a lot of retail establishment areas of town zoned for retail establishments. So the question becomes, does this commission want to prohibit that use? Does this commission want to place reasonable restrictions on that use? And we could also, restrict distance or proximity to schools, charities, what have you.
Same criteria as a package store?
Well, that's,
Same criteria we're looking at type of thing?
well, we put down setbacks for the medical marijuana dispensaries. I'm trying to see that. We don't have a lot of requests for this, so as the licenses come out of the state, we may have more. But we're talking here on medical marijuana dispensaries. Shall not be permitted within 1,000 feet of a portion of a property with a duly organized school, municipal park, recreational facility, place of worship, or 200 feet of a boundary of a residential zoning district as designated on the map, the zoning map. And here you have, on the map that's in your packet, it's basically a copy of our zoning map. And what engineering did was take an overlay with this kind of beehive pattern, any area that would conform to the setbacks for medical marijuana dispensaries. So you can see some of the areas where that type of use could potentially be located based upon our medical marijuana dispensaries.
I see in this honeycomb pattern, like some of the parcels are cut. The line goes to the middle of parcel and stuff like that. So is that,
Probably the distancing.
so how do you address that? I mean,
Well, it would be the property on which, so it goes from the property line. So this could be deceiving in that if it's cut in half, you'd have to take and eliminate that parcel.
Yeah. Makes sense. We should, in other words, it's a minimum of 200 feet, not 200 feet regardless of where.
Yes, because it says the property on which it's located
Yeah.
shall not be permitted.
So if part of the
So
property
it's-
is closer than 200 feet, that one's eliminated.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I don't know if that's.
So are we making a decision tonight, or are we just
Just
pondering this?
Well, obviously, the longer this commission waits, I mean, if you want to give me some direction, I would take and write something up for you for our next meeting.
statutorily, there is no requirement, right? Is there?
No.
There's
But it
nothing
would be,
coming.
it would be considered a retail establishment.
Okay.
You guys want to eliminate waterfront and eliminate that whole area?
Like people falling in the river.
Oh, that's
Do you
what
guys
the-
have any concern
Oh, it's
about
not-
that down there?
Well, I mean,
Oh, down-
I'm thinking even more than, I mean, why would we put it in
Farm?
retail in an office park, business park area? So that would eliminate all of that, the waterfront. So then that leaves just the commercial retail areas, and then I think you kind of got to go from there.
So you would say RC and C? What, and were applicable in C?
I mean,
But keep in mind, you may still have those distance requirements. So in that case, look at the area about interchange 24.
Yeah.
Look at that area over there.
yeah.
And
That's
over
probably
by,
where most of it's
over by West Hill. Over by West Hill.
So the.
No, the
so
distance
honey-
requirements are in the honeycomb area. So
Right,
that would be
sorry.
the areas where
Elm Street.
it
Right,
could
right.
be allowed.
Where the honeycomb is, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But you're saying,
I think what Ron's saying is why would we put it in an office park, a business park? Is that what you're,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
it-
so
it-
really,
yeah.
it would
Why
only
would
be
In the
It'd
RC.
either be over the,
in that upper area.
yeah, over near exit 24, and then, over
over
near
by
Route 3 off exit
Elm Street there.
23, but,
Yeah, it makes,
and then the discussion would go from there. I mean,
no, that makes, I mean,
So not allow it in an industrial zone, basically. just
And
keep.
then
keep it
Honeycomb
in-
area over near exit 23's got a bunch of office parks, so that makes the Honeycomb area smaller.
And it also divides several properties, so those properties are eliminated just by dividing the property.
Yeah.
So technically, you're looking at a couple plazas over on Route 3 side.
I mean, if you think about it,
Inwood
even.
Road,
Those plazas
Inwood
are-
Road area.
if
Yeah.
you think of the Route 3
But
area.
that's, he's proposing no
Small.
business park.
If you think, well, my daughter goes to school at Western New England. We had a visit from INSA, who's the owner of an establishment in Springfield right off 91. And so one day I picked her up from college, and we literally sat in the parking lot, and she was like, "Mom, what are we doing here?" And so I said, "We're watching traffic." And they opened up the establishment there, and this was when they first opened up. The traffic was crazy. We sat in the parking lot, and there was a police officer directing traffic, but it was one way in, one way out, and it was right off the highway. And then several visits later, up in Springfield, we went back and sat in the parking lot, and the traffic had calmed down, and it was
Yeah, well,
interesting.
everybody's going to want to jump on the bandwagon.
Yeah, it was interesting
Yeah.
just to see that, but they did come in and speak to the then town manager and the mayor and myself about their establishment. But
So does that matter,
So
like, how
it-
many establishments they have? I mean, if there is only one,
well, there had been a requirement based upon population in Connecticut. So Rocky Hill would have a maximum of one, but they did away with that requirement. So that requirement is no longer in existence.
So is there anything that says that a retail and medical can be near each other, or they have to be
They
distant?
could be one in the same place.
Yeah.
They could be one in the same place.
I think what Ron was talking about is, can we limit it just to the RC up in the the north?
Well, he's also saying commercial, too. I think he also said commercial and
But
No, you said
commercial,
RC.
Well, I just
RCNC.
said commercial, so we have regional
Commercial would
commercial,
be-
and then we have commercial. So that only leaves RC, or the Honeycomb portion that's in RC, and then that leaves,
some areas
Elm
along,
and then the
Street,
area
yeah.
that's commercial over near
23.
Route 3,
But that's too close to the school, so that can't be there,
yeah, I thought the Honeycomb was already set back from the schools.
Yeah, it is.
right?
it is
So it's
setback.
the end of West Street and the end of Elm Street.
But again, it's all open for discussion, because maybe you want to keep it all in one place.
Yeah. Would it make sense for you to put together what you think would be the
We could
most
do that.
logical
We could
thing?
do
And
that.
then we review that rather than,
I would be in favor of RC.
but we're getting
only.
some feedback. This is good.
yeah, I think this,
I think
I mean,
RC,
RC
not a
makes
huge
I
sense.
think
town. It's
RC
not
makes
like-
sense.
somebody wants to get high, they're going to drive 2 miles to get.
Plus, they're going to have multifamily now in that zone, so.
Too bad this guy isn't here. We could say you can make that your commercial park.
And then it
Yeah,
can-
so,
then they
On
can
the
go to
fourth
Wendy's.
floor, yeah.
I mean, I think it's like a liquor store, like you were saying. I think it's really like a liquor store. It should
Yeah.
be, it should be regulated like a liquor store. It's even more secure than a liquor store.
It
It's,
yeah,
you know, what's the difference? I mean,
Except-
people drive, they get their stuff, they leave.
right.
They go home, have a good time, you
You're not
know.
going to sit in the parking lot.
Build a bakery next to it, that would be a good thing, you know.
But keep
like
in mind
that.
that we have a liquor store that's right across the street from West Hill School, too. You know, that one
We actually do.
somehow
Yep,
got in
been there.
there somehow.
Yeah. How
I
did
was
that
there a
happen?
long time.
That's
It was
been there a while.
pre-existing?
I think maybe
And an ice cream shop.
That's a good compatible use.
school came afterwards.
Okay, so,
Okay.
I think RC.
All right, so,
I think RC.
yeah, that's my lean toward that.
RC, and then we can, in the future, we can see how
We
The applications come in.
eliminate this from our town altogether, right? We have to have.
Well, you can
We can.
prohibit it.
we can say, it's like,
And Kim, there's
Prohibition.
restrictions on proximity if there's
Correct.
multiple? What's the restriction on that?
Well, not No, there's proximity issues with respect to
Pools and-
certain uses.
How about one
That I don't
That's
You mean
probably
one
up
next
to
to
them
another?
if they want
One
to
next-
duke it
That's
out.
their
I don't
business
know that.
model.
That's a business, yeah.
Yeah.
But what do we want?
What do we want? Could we
don't
actually
want like
say
But
there has to be a distance between?
we are identifying
I
an
don't think
area.
that's gonna happen.
We are identifying an area, and then in that area,
Anything can
3
happen.
people can go and have a business. That's a business model.
Yeah. Like car dealerships, all
I mean,
next to
so
each other.
that's what we
I
are
don't-
doing.
I
We are
don't see that
limiting by
happening,
area,
but-
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but there aren't
So-
different brands of such and such.
Yeah, I think
Like cars.
clumping a certain thing too close together might
not good.
not really look that good.
But what about if there's one right on over the border in Weathersfield, right in the same area?
Well,
I know we can't stop it, but I'm just saying it's
comment.
Can't
Business
take that.
people do their job.
But the more you have,
Not put
the
them right
less-
next to each other, I'm sure.
that's they want to do, yeah.
The more you have, the less
It's
traffic
stupid,
you have
actually.
at each
Yeah,
location.
and keep in mind, I mean, the licenses for any of these establishments is not cheap. We're talking thousands and thousands of dollars just to
regulated.
get a license, so.
Yeah, so I think we can go by that area and then,
ICRC.
then we'll see.
Okay.
All right. So that gives,
Some direction.
Something? Okay.
Yep.
all right, item 6A, zoning enforcement.
Lately, the majority of our complaints have been overgrown vegetation, overhanging sidewalks or overhanging streets. We also have a lot of people with commercial vehicles parking on town property. We know that they may have a home-based business in their home, and they're parking in town parks. They're being chased out of town parks, and where they're going to go next, we're not sure. Or we have commercial vehicles parking on streets, which is not a zoning violation. They had been parking on their own property. They can't do that by law because they can't screen the vehicles. So they're parking on town streets, creating problems for neighborhoods, so that's a problem. But when they did away with that overnight parking ordinance some years back, where that's rearing its ugly head again. And the police department's getting complaints about people blocking sight distance or parking on curves, and it's not a zoning matter. So that's what we're getting now.
So you can park overnight now.
You can park overnight on a street, yes.
Yeah.
Anywhere you want.
Anywhere?
I found that whole discussion kind of, the discussion was that the rationale behind doing away with overnight parking was, they said we only had 2 or 3 complaints a year or something like that, but that's because the regulation was in place,
Right.
So, but that was the rationale used to do away with the regulation for no overnight parking. One thing on this, though, I noticed, it wasn't confined to any one group or anybody, but the political signs this year were all over the place.
That's correct. And every time, we have a regulation that states that political signs should not be on town or state property. We have had multiple complaints this year that political signs were on town or state property, and we ourselves have seen them. Every time we did, and every time there's an election, we go to the respective party chairs and find out who's in charge of signs. And then we send an email with the regulations at the beginning of the season. And then every time we get a complaint, we will send an email out to both. If it's on the town campus, we've gotten a few complaints about political signs on the town campus itself, meaning police department, library, and town hall. What we will do is, for those, we will actually go pick the sign up and just lay it flat, and then call the respective party. We will not take those signs. We will not take political signs. That's not something we will do.
Right, yeah, but this year it seemed to be worse.
We got multiple complaints about the streetscape up at the Elm Street, Glastonbury Avenue intersection, where the new streetscape, landscaping in the town, like the clock, and the benches, multiple political signs in that location, and multiple complaints. And as I said,
pretty bad.
both
Can't we
both
collect them?
parties,
Can't we
we will not collect.
Collect them and give them
political
back,
signs.
hold them for like
No.
$10?
It's
That's a federal law.
removal of signs and stuff, now you're getting into.
Second Amendment.
All we do is just place it down.
Down?
If it's on the campus, we will do that. If it's elsewhere, if it blocks sight distance, we will take the sign down. And it was very good this year as far as that goes. We didn't have any of the really large signs blocking sight distance. But in the past, we've been known to actually cut signs down, lay them down, and then call on the spot and just say, if it blocks sight distance, no.
Can you call the state? Because I know in previous years, there were some violations, and there was, I don't know who went to you or the manager or whatever, and the state was called, and they can actually take the signs down. They have
That's
them.
not something that would come out of our office, that would come out of either the manager's office
Yeah.
or police. We're not getting into a political brouhaha over that.
There were signs like a foot from the curb
Yeah.
on Maple Street, all up and down. And, you know, I'm saying it wasn't any one particular.
No, I
group,
know,
it was
but,
everybody.
no.
I feel like you're looking at my back. all the
Anyhow,
time.
just thought I'd
Yeah.
mention that for next year.
Like your back.
We're going to do a follow-up with both parties as far as the chairman and the people that we were given the names of with respect to signs.
Yeah.
We'll send
I
it
think
out to people.
Maybe before election, a month or two in advance, have a sit-down conversation
Like in
and
July or
explain them what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And you can have police, you can have fire, you can have whoever is in charge, and tell them this is what will happen.
Yeah.
And
Well, we do reach out, we go through the registrar of voters office to reach out to who we have to contact, and then we do that. And we've had conversations on the phone with them, and it still happened, so.
All right, it's done, so it's
I'm sorry.
next 2 years.
How'd that work out for you?
Minor modifications? Any?
None.
All right. PIC, Plan Implementation Committee.
And I know you had sent me something on PIC also.
Yep.
Victor sent me an email on PIC, so.
Do we have,
I know, I already talked about the Complete Streets policy, I think, before.
When's our next meeting?
Ray Carpentino was going to send that through Government Ops Committee. He's opted not to do that, but go straight to Town Council with a draft policy that PIC put together to see if the council wanted to either adopt it or modify it. And so he's going to bypass Government Ops and go straight to the Town Council with that, which is actually good.
did we have any meeting scheduled, like for November, December? I don't know, I forgot. If we had
I
that.
couldn't have made a meeting in November, but if you
There's
want.
too many meetings. It's like, it's just.
I thought we had one in December sometime.
Did you want to, we can.
We can talk about when we can have one meeting, so at
Yeah.
least.
I can't remember, but did we discuss the sidewalk ordinance in PIC, or do we do it here? Or we start in PIC and bring it here?
We can bring it, we
The
can discuss here.
The modification of the.
That can go from PIC to the council,
Okay,
yeah.
because we still want to do it.
We don't have to come here.
Yeah.
That's,
But what I'm saying is,
And that's-
we can still, I mean, it doesn't have to go from there to there to there, right? I mean, we can,
Well, she's saying it can
Push.
go right from PIC to town council.
It can go to PIC to the town council like Complete Streets did. Could do that. It
Because
can
all
go
we're
from here to
doing
the
is-
town council.
So PIC can give the Planning and Zoning Commission,
see,
for us,
I
it would
think-
just be informational.
I think.
no, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get this body to have more leverage when it comes to sidewalks and asking developers to put sidewalks in. And it's an ordinance change.
There's
Right.
a town ordinance that talks about residential subdivisions and
So I think this is my,
having, and the sidewalk fund, I want to get that in the town ordinance to
Right.
make sure it's
I mean, this is my
like the statute.
take on PIC, like, I mean, again, with PIC, we are the same, P and Z members are there, wetlands members, but I don't want PIC bypass zoning commission, P and Z, where zoning regulations are discussed and go to council directly.
But the sidewalk thing would be an ordinance. which would
Right.
be the-
Yeah.
And we don't deal with ordinance, we deal
I
with.
understand, but say, we had a different opinion about that ordinance. What I'm saying is, if, we were not in sync, for example, just for
So to your
argument.
point, so to your
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
can this commission recommend something to the PIC to get it to the town council? So it starts here to
That's
tell them
fine,
what we
we-
want to do.
It can even go from
That
here
way,
to the
yeah.
council.
It can go from here, that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. We can just
yeah.
do it.
Oh.
There is no need
Oh,
for
for
PIC
the
to
PIC.
get
Oh,
involved,
okay, okay.
because it's a sidewalk, we have discussed it.
I want
We should just
sidewalks.
put it up.
I want
So,
sidewalks.
so I think, Kim, why don't we put that and draft something up, and then we'll,
Recommend, we can recommend
we
it to
can
the town.
recommend it to the council. 'Cause I-
The meaning, planning and zoning?
Planning and zoning,
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah. Because, again, I don't want to
That's fine,
bypass
that's fair.
people.
That's why I bring it up.
Yep.
So it's a good time to do it because they're starting to think about budgets,
Okay,
so that's a good time to do it.
yeah, so let's draft something and we'll discuss it the next meeting. Legislation?
No.
I have, okay. Just to bring up a point, the legal notice that was put out for the November 2nd meeting says that the public hearing for the affordable housing plan is going to be on Wednesday, December 12th. The numbers
Wow.
were reversed. I read that. I
That's
got that off
interesting.
the internet. I said, December 12th?
That's wrong.
So I don't know if you can reissue that or, because that's a public notice.
Good catch, Alan.
Well, I was wondering, I said, that's a Monday. I can't come.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
That's was my first thought. And it says Wednesday, the 12th.
December, yeah.
So that was,
There was Lynn.
okay.
Nice. All right, communications, we don't have any communications, right? What we have?
Motion adjourned.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're all
Wow.
ready to get out of here.